Welcome, and thank you for listening to Sandy Creek Stirrings. I'm your host, Joshua Jimenez.
And if you're going to win souls, you've got to love souls. In spite of their meanness, in spite of the way they look, in spite of everything, you've got to seek to bring souls to Jesus Christ because you love them, because Jesus loved them, and because Jesus died for them, and you're trying to bring them to the Son of God.
The Bible says in Psalm 84:11, my last verse, "For the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly." I've based my whole life on that it pays to serve God, and I believe that with all my heart.
God has given us a guidebook. God has given us a directional map. And that guidebook, that map, is the precious Word of God.
Listen, don't just go and sit in the pew. Find some way to serve, and serve as a family. Be a part of everything at church. And when you learn to love what God loves, your children will learn to love it as well.
Homes are not that spiritually strong. We're getting overtaken by the world quickly, but unfortunately, we're pumping all the sewage in. We're letting the world in when that ought to be a haven.
Of the many things that I can control, editing and things of that sort when you produce a podcast, one thing I cannot control is the weather. And this morning, as I sit here in the auditorium of the Great Victory Springs Independent Baptist Church in High Springs, Florida, as I sit here this morning, it is literally raining cats and dogs. Okay, maybe literally isn't the proper term, but it is raining so hard and so heavy. There is lightning, there is thunder, so I want to apologize right now off the bat. If you are hearing extremely loud thunder, trust me, it scares me as much as it scares you. And who knows? We'll see how much of the background noise I can edit out of the podcast today. With this extremely loud thunder and rain and all the other things. But anyway, I'm glad to have you back with me this morning, whether it be, oh my goodness, whether it be the rain or the thunder or whatever. I'm glad to have you listening once again here to Sandy Creek Stirrings. Of course, the podcast has been going for, is it almost 2 years now? Going on in August, it'll be 2 years. And just excited about the things we've seen and the things we've been able to accomplish. Many, many listeners and people who are excited who have excitedly responded and said they've enjoyed the content, they've enjoyed the podcast, they've enjoyed the different things we've been able to talk about. Heard from a listener this morning saying that they were glad for the diversity that they get within the podcast episodes, and so I'm thankful for that. I hope you have been enjoying the podcast. We've got listeners from many different countries, and we're adding countries constantly. Some of the most recent countries that have been added to the list have been Jamaica, and so if you're listening from Jamaica, thank you for listening. Trinidad and Tobago, however you say that, and then Vietnam. I should know that. I'm from I was in the islands for a little while. I should know that. Vietnam, Norway, Taiwan, New Zealand, Poland, South Africa, Uganda. And so we've added some listeners from some other countries recently. And so if you're listening from one of those, thank you for being a listener. I'd love to hear from you. Email me, joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com, and tell me, how did you hear about the podcast? In fact, every listener right now, do this for me. I would love to know how you heard about the podcast. Did you hear about it from friends? Did you hear about it from me? Maybe you followed me personally on Facebook or something like that. Did you find it? Did you just come across it? Tell me, how did you find Sandy Creek Stirrings? You can email those responses to me at joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. Again, that's joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com, or Facebook message that to our Facebook page, of course, Sandy Creek Stirrings. I would love to find out, okay, how did you find out about the podcast here, Sandy Creek Stirrings? And so would love to hear from you on that. Today in this episode, I am going to give you, and I've got it typed in here. Let me see what I titled this episode, and we'll see if it actually makes it that way when I finally do publish the episode. But I think we're going to go with 10 technology purity tips for teens. 10 technology purity tips for teens. And this is a subject that is really big on my heart. Of course, I'm a youth director at my church. I handle the teenage division, the teenage department. of our church and plan activities and summer camps and teach Sunday school and do all those different things. And one thing that is very concerning for me is the purity of my teens. I want them to keep their purity. I want them one day to be able to stand at the marriage altar with the love of their life and be able to say, you know what, I kept my purity. I kept my heart. I stayed pure. You're the only one I've ever kissed. You're the only one whose hand I've ever held. You're the only one who I've hugged and done those things with. I want them to be able to say that for their future spouse, and I want them to save themselves. I want that for my teenager, and I honestly believe that every youth director has that desire for their teenagers. I believe every parent who is a Christian parent who cares, right, about their kids, I think they have that same desire. I think every pastor wants the teenagers of the church and the children of the church to save themselves from marriage and to keep pure. Was it not God? Was it not God through the Apostle Paul who told Timothy, keep thyself pure? And so purity is a big matter. And in today, we have the ability to lose parts and portions of our purity very quickly because of the technological world that we live in. Technology and what we have at our fingertips in today's world is something that really no other generation has ever had to the extent that we have it. Now, of course, I'm not saying that there wasn't ways for previous generations to lose portions of their purity and to give things away before marriage that they shouldn't have. But in today's world, there's all the more access to it. And sadly, I see so many parents buying phones for their teenagers, and I understand some of the reasonings. I get it. You know, some of you are sending your children into public schools, and with all the things going on in public schools today, you know, that's a big consideration and some things you have to really weigh. But something I think parents and youth directors and pastors and people should be aware of, grandparents should be aware of, are the dangers that can come from the technological world. Technology can be something that can be used for very wonderful and great things, but at the same time is so very deadly and so very dangerous to the purity of our youth. Your teenager, when they have a phone, and you're not watching them, can find things on the internet that they should have never seen. Things that one day when they are your age will wish someone had protected them from because they wish they wouldn't have had to deal with that in their life. And so today I'm going to give you 10 technology purity, however we label this episode, and whatever it says in the title, 10 technology purity tips for teens. And these are things that I really believe are going to help your teenager in keeping their purity in a technological world, especially if you give them a phone and you give them access to the internet. These are things that you're going to want to put into place. Now, are these the only 10? Absolutely not. And you say, are these tips, are these things you're going to put in place for your teens? If they ever have a phone, which I highly doubt, then yes, these rules will be in place. For me, and when I look at this as I look towards the future of my parenting, and who knows what kind of world we'll live in when my kids become teenagers, 10, 15 years from now. What kind of world we'll live in, I may reconsider. I doubt it, but I may reconsider whether I give my teenagers a phone. But let me tell you right now, no, I'm not giving my teenagers a phone. You say, why? Because I was a teenager not too long ago. I understand the dangers that are there. I understand how you can hide things. I understand how you can go places you shouldn't go. I get it. I've been there. I've done that. But let me tell you something. You better be very careful when you allow your teenagers and your children the access to technology. You better be very careful. Grandparents, you better be very careful, because here's what you don't want. You don't want, oh, yes, Grandma and Grandpa, oh, can I play on your phone? Of course you can, sweetie. You can play on my phone and play whatever popular game there is now. You can play the game on Grandpa's phone. And you let them play with your phone for a couple hours and aren't even looking at what's going on, and you have no idea what they looked up on your phone. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, you have no idea what they're doing. It's dangerous. Dangerous. So we're going to give some technology purity tips for today, and I will give you this statement, and then we'll dive right into the content. I'll give you this statement. Some of you are going to be in shock by some of these. These are going to be some things that you've never heard of, never considered, and you might even think are stupid. Yes, I just said not the S word, but a different S word. I said stupid. You know, there's a lot of Christians who they don't say stupid. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. Maybe I need to have more couth. But some of you are going to think that is royally stupid. Why in the world would I not allow that? That seems like the dumbest thing maybe you've never heard that before, but whatever it may be, I want you to seriously consider these tips. And if you're a teenager listening today, seriously consider these tips. I've been in your shoes not too long ago. I know the dangers that are there, so let me encourage you to put these into place. Parents, as you examine your children and whether or not you're going to give them technology at their fingertips, you're going to give them a phone, things of that sort. These are things you're going to want to put in place, because having a phone should be a privilege. It should be a privilege. It should not be a right. And when they violate the conditions of the privilege, you need to be man enough and mama enough to step in and say, no, yeah, it's not going to work for you anymore. You violated the standards of your privilege. And be parent enough to step up to the plate and take a swing and be willing to do the best thing for your children. All right, number one, we're going to open with one that's going to shock you, that's going to blow your mind. You're probably going to be like, what? That makes no sense whatsoever. And but let me tell you this, it's going to be the ultimate wisdom for your teenagers. Number one, if you're going to give your kids a phone, if you're going to give your teens a phone, especially your teenagers, give your teenagers a phone, you need to sit down and have a rule. You are not allowed. And so I'm gonna give this rule like I'm giving it to a teenager sitting down and talking with me. Number one, don't text the opposite gender. Don't text the opposite gender. You're a teenage girl, don't text teenage guys. You're a teenage guy, don't text teenage girls. And some of you your jaw just dropped open. You're like, what? They're just friends. No, they're not. Give me a break. Come on, open your eyes. Be real. They are not just friends. How many of you listening, adults, all right, let's just do a little poll real quick. How many of you adults told your parents at one point in time, they're just my friend, and you knew they weren't, you didn't want it to be just your friend, you had a severe crush on that person, you're like, I wouldn't mind if we weren't just friends. How many of you, let's have a raise of hands, obviously I can't see anybody, but I would imagine many, 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 many hands are going up right now that are listening to this episode who say, yep, been there, done that. So why let your kids lie to you? Don't let them text the opposite gender. Do you really think they're going to have the best conversations with people of the opposite gender? Because here's what it's going to be. It's just going to be a flirting contest. And is that really what you want your teenager to be doing? To be flirting with all these other people from their school? Mom, we're just friends. We're just texting. It's just a group message with some of my friends from school, and we're just talking. Oh, we're just joking. We're not flirting. Give me a break. Come on, parents. You need to understand, and teenagers, you need to understand. Don't text the opposite gender. And let me tell you something. You may, as a teenager listening, you may think in your heart, you may really think, well, we really are just friends. Brother Josh, we really are just friends. You may think that way now. You text them long enough. You cannot communicate with someone of the opposite gender for long lengths of time privately and it not turn into some sort of feelings. Can I go as far to say as it's impossible? It will happen. I can tell you of couples who the wife was like, he was ugly. I never considered, maybe they didn't come right out and say he was ugly. That'd be terrible. And but they thought, I wasn't interested in whatever, but they started talking and look what happened, right? I mean, that's what happens. So don't let your teenager, and teenagers don't text people of the opposite gender. Just don't do it. Number 2, put your phone up at night. Put your phone up at night. Take it, put it on the kitchen counter, Plug it in and leave it there. You don't need your phone at night. You say, well, I use it as an alarm clock. There is this wonderful thing at Dollar General or Walmart or whatever it may be called an alarm clock, right? And what you do is you get it and you plug it in and you push these little buttons and it turns the hours and the minutes and you can set your time, and then it's got a snooze button on top and it's got this loud it's got all these wonderful noises you can pick from. It's called an alarm clock. And it doesn't access the internet. And it keeps you safe. Because when teenagers are alone in their room late at night on the internet, good things aren't happening. What do you think your teenagers are doing late at night on their phone on the internet? Not good things. I mean, some of your teens might be watching funny cat videos that are not funny. That's just a hot take right there. But, seriously, it's not going to be long if your kid is staying up. It worries me. It concerns me when teenagers tell me, oh, my parents don't care when I go to bed. I go to bed at 2 a.m. every morning, and I just get on my phone. That is alarming. You really think that Satan's just going to let it be? Oh, I'm not going to touch him. I'm not going to. No, Satan wants to destroy your kids. What do you think he's going to bring in their mind to look up when they're alone late at night? People do stupid things when they're alone late at night. So, have your kids, have your teenagers put your phone up at night. Give it to your parents. Plug it in on the kitchen counter. Leave it there till the next morning. If your biggest concern is that, well, I need my alarm, go get an alarm clock. $5. There you go. Problem solved. But put your phone up at night. It's the safest protection there is against temptation at night. Number 3, stop following people of the opposite gender on Instagram. Stop following people of the opposite gender on Instagram. And here's going to be one that probably I'm going to get the most flack for if anybody sends me any flack. I'm probably going to get the most flack for this one because you're going to be like, well, you know what? I'm talking about if you got a kid who goes to public school, don't let them follow the other public school kids of the opposite gender on Instagram. You say, why? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to get into a flirting contest, not over texting, but through comments, through private messaging. They're going to, and here's the deal. Do you really think, if you're trying to raise godly Christian kids, do you really think the influences they get at school are going to be the best influences for them? And so you want them influencing them on social media? Social media is an influence platform. That's why they have influencers who go on these platforms and they post pictures and they post this and they post that. And some of the things your kids are going to see on social media are dangerous. Now, that's on just a complete, any gender level. But especially when you get to the opposite gender, oh my goodness, be very careful. Be very careful who you let them follow on social media. And you say, what do you mean who I let them? Yes, parents, you should have a say on who they follow. One of the deals my wife and I made before we were married is that we would not follow anybody of the opposite gender on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever. We just weren't going to do it. We made sure that we kept each other safe and accountable. Number four, don't be on the internet alone at night. And I've kind of already covered that, so I'm not going to dive any further. Next, guard your eyes and help the guys guard theirs. Now, this is maybe not so much technology, but it can have its play in the technology world. But I'm going to come out of the technology world for a second and use it in a different scenario. When you're walking in the mall or you're driving down the street, have you noticed the nakedness, can I say? Biblically, they are naked. Have you noticed the nakedness that's being spread all around? Satan is doing a very good job at trying to tempt men and trying to get them to slip up. Satan's doing a good job at it. He's putting it everywhere he possibly can. When I go into a mall, I have to do my best to guard my eyes. In the same way, for the teen guys and the gentlemen listening out there, listen, guard your eyes. Quit taking second looks at things you know you shouldn't be looking at. Quit staring at things you know you shouldn't be looking at. When something comes up, you're driving down the interstate, oh, there's a billboard on the right, I shouldn't look at that. You know, you can't help the first look sometimes because you didn't know it was coming up, and you see it, oh, man, bounce those eyes to the left and keep them there till you've passed it. And when you're at the mall, you know, your eyes are going to be bouncing up, down, left, right, all around 24/7 until you get out of that place. But learn to guard your eyes. Be man enough to not look at things that you know you shouldn't look at. And then, ladies, you can help in this way as well, because my wife, when we're walking through the mall, she'll say, look left, I look left. Look up, I look up. Look down, look down. Look right, look right. Except for her, it's like, look up, look down, look up, look right, look up, look down. Close your eyes. Let me put a blindfold on you. And no, she doesn't really do that. But you need to do a good job at guarding your eyes. But then, ladies, do a good job at helping your husband, your teenage sons, your kids guard their eyes, and teach them now to bounce their eyes. Hey, we don't look at that. Look over this way. And we want to make sure that we help them to guide their eyes even at a young age. Now, this also can apply in another way. Ladies, this is why it's so important that you dress modestly. This is why it's so important that you dress modestly. Why in the world would you want to dress in a way that a guy can't even look your direction because he's worried about something? That shouldn't happen. And sadly, it happens in churches all across America who women just aren't dressing modestly, and guys have to come in and they have to bounce their eyes in church. That should not happen. Especially now, you know, visitors, different story. But especially, you're a faithful lady coming to church growing, dress modestly, please. Help the gentleman out. Help to guard their eyes. Help in that way. Also, can I just put this out there, and this is how we're going in the technological area with this. Be very careful of the things you post. You may share a video to your Facebook page, and other guys watch that video, and you say, well, I didn't dress immodestly. It's just the people in the video. Quit sharing it. All you're doing is you're being a distraction from godly things by sharing things that really should not be shared to begin with. So guard your eyes, guys, and then ladies, help the guys guard theirs. Next, don't go on the internet because you're bored. If you're bored, don't go on the internet. A teenager, go do something outside. Go play a board game. Go in the kitchen and learn how to cook. Do something productive. Do something else. But just because you're bored, that is not a good reason to go on the internet. You have that famous phrase that the idle hands are the devil's workshop. You know, boredom can be a serious danger to you when you go on the internet because you're going to be tempted to do things that you shouldn't. In the same way, on the same note, but we'll do this one number next, don't random watch on YouTube. Don't random watch on YouTube. We've all been there. We go on YouTube. We're bored. We'll click a video. Then we'll click another video. Then we'll click another video. And all of a sudden we're watching, like we started watching something on how to fix an electrical outlet. And all of a sudden we're watching eagles hatching from their eggs. Because that's just the way YouTube is. It's a hole and it sucks you in. And so be very careful that you don't do that because the devil's smart. He'll lead you to things that are things you should not be watching. Next, for the teenagers, give your parents your passwords. Give your parents your passwords. And parent, if your teenager says, no, you don't need to know that, you do need to know that. That is dangerous when your teenager doesn't want you to know what is on their phone. Do you think they're trying to hide good things from you? No, they're trying to hide bad things from you. You need to know their passwords, and that should be something where if you pick up your teen's phone one day and they've given you their passwords and that's one of the standards of their privilege, and you pick it up one day and all of a sudden something's locked and you can't get in, revoke the privilege. You have just lost your privilege. You don't change this password for your email, for your Facebook, for your Instagram, for your phone, for your whatever. You don't change your password without telling me. So your privilege has just been revoked, and we'll look at this as a family and see, okay, what do we want to do as far as reinstating this privilege? That's dangerous. You want to have their passwords. Teenagers, you should have no problem with giving your parents your password. If you have a problem with it, it's not a good problem. It's a bad problem. You want to get it fixed. And so give your parents your passwords to your email, to your phone, to your social media. Give them the password to anything. There should be nothing off limits. Same thing for spouses. Let me tell you something. Hey. If your wife or your husband doesn't want you to get on their phone at any point in time, there's a problem there. My wife can pick up my phone. Her fingerprint is right here on my phone. All it's got to do is scan her fingerprint and boom, 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 boom. Whatever that means. She's in my phone. And she's right there. If my phone took that long to boot up, I'd have to get a new phone. But she can get right in. She can see everything. There's nothing hidden from my wife. She knows all of my passwords. She knows everything. Her fingerprint has access to every single portion of my device. You need to have the same for your teenagers. The next is, and you heard this before, over and over and over before, install an accountability software. Install an accountability software. I use Accountable to You. That's what my wife and I use, and a couple others that we have in our family use. And it just keeps you accountable. Every keystroke is recorded, and I can go back at any point in time. My wife can go back, and we can look at what each other's doing on our phones and make sure we're staying safe and accountable. If you have teenagers, I would never give them a device without having some sort of accountability software on there. So you really need to consider that. And then next, here's one. And again, maybe stepping out of the technology world a little bit here on this one, but I think it applies to technology as well. And this is another one who, if I'm going to get flack, this may be the one I'm going to get flack on. Stop being friends with the opposite gender. Yeah. Stop being friends with the opposite gender. Now, I didn't say stop being friendly. I said stop being friends. And by the way, when I said friendly, I didn't mean flirty. I said friendly. There's a difference between being friendly and being flirty. And many women do not understand the difference. And so you need to be very careful in that. But stop being friends with the opposite gender. Just quit it. You go to public school, I'm sorry, you can't be, well, we're just friends, and kind of tying back into that very first point we gave. It's not going to stay that way. If you keep walking down the hall together, if you keep sitting at lunch together, if you keep following each other on Instagram and you keep liking each other's posts and you keep texting each other funny jokes and stories, and you keep going with each other to the football game and you go with each other to different events, and it's not going to stay friends. It just won't. Feelings will begin to appear. Feelings will begin to change. And you know what? Maybe you really think you're friends right now. It won't stay that way. It just won't. So stop being friends with the opposite gender. If they want to walk you down the hall every day, find a different way to walk down the hall. Find somebody else to walk with you. Be very careful, because feelings and things can arise when you don't do a good job at guarding your heart. And one of the big lies Satan has got to our teenage generation of today is, well, you can just be friends. No, you can't be. You're not going to stay just friends. So there's some technology tips for you, for your teenagers, to help keep their purity in a technological world. And these are big ones. If you implement these in your life, you'll be well on your way to keeping your purity. And that's what we want, right? So let's take the high road. You take the low road, there's more of a chance of losing some of that air of purity. Take the high road and guarantee that we keep it. Well, my friend, there's some tips for you. If you have any questions on those, you can email me, joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. Don't forget, tell me how you found Sandy Creek Stirrings. Either message us on Facebook or send me an email. Again, that's joshua@sandycreekstirrings.com. But until next time, keep looking up and keep stirred up for the cause of Christ.